Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We are at the top of the noon hour. We're going to give you just a few moments to join us. And while you're joining us, I'm actually going to share this broadcast on my personal page. Today, we're going to have an extremely sensitive but much needed conversation. So I'll ask that as you're listening, if there's something in this conversation that sparks something in you that you think that others can benefit from, you too, please share this on your social media pages as well. And because I'm not as computer savvy as I would like to be, I'm actually going to share it after the broadcast. Oh, welcome, welcome. Again, happy Wednesday. And I welcome you to the Faith Based Advisory Board social media page. It is an honor to be before you. If you're just joining us for the very first time, I welcome you. If you're familiar with our platform, thank you. Thank you for not only returning, but thank you for bringing somebody else with you, because I'm sure you didn't just come back alone. My name is Nakia Wright, and I am the chair of the Faith Based Advisory Board. I share this space with Reverend Charles McNeil, the chosen vessel who our illustrious county executive put over the Faith Based Advisory Board. And I also share this space with my co-chair, Dr. Sharon Anderson, um, eh, the non-comparable Dr. Sharon Anderson. It is my hope that if you have not done so, that you're following this page so that you can see all that this board has done. We were put in place to be a bridge between faith-based communities and the government entities. We are serving as a resource to ensure that our religious leaders are well informed regarding the affairs of the county, and that their role in ensuring we are the anchors in the community where the residents of Prince George's County live, work, and worship. We know that as leaders, they all come to the church leaders to find out what are the answers that we should be prepared for. So, as a board, we've been trying to ensure that, again, you are equipped with the right answers. On this platform, we've addressed some extremely vital issues. Again, as religious organizations, we are the anchor in our communities. FBAB has worked to assist you in not only establishing programs and ministries, but assisting you to make sure that we all have in place what it is to be an effective change in our communities. It's not enough to be in the community and doing business as usual. But if you are not making a change and making a difference and being effective, you are just taking up space. So we are here to build stronger communities, to build stronger families, to strengthen the foundation of Prince George's County, because at the end of the day, we are stronger together. Prince George's County, we are trailblazers. We set the standard for the entire state to follow. Listen, I'm prophesying. If we do not, I'm telling you we do. But statistics show hands down that we have leaders in our county that are not afraid to be first. We have leaders in our county that's not afraid to fail to make a difference. Oftentimes, as we're living in today, a pandemic, we've never been here before. So everything we're trying for the first time. And we don't always get it right, but we are a great comeback story. We are full of tenacity. We are full of grace. We're full of patience, and we're full of love for the residents of Prince George's County. And the leaders of our county have proven that they will go over the extra mile to make sure that we are protected and well governed. I have before me today, I can't wait. I'm so excited about today. While the topic is extremely sensitive, in just a moment, I'm going to introduce the guest that you see before you today. In honor of April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Child Abuse Prevention Month, we're having a conversation about the signs and the wounds of sexual abuse and child abuse. This has impacted us all in some way. Without intention, it feels as if on most days we have normalized brokenness. When we ignore the issues that break down our communities and the family dynamic, we create we've created rather in this generation or another one, that it's okay to build on fragmented pieces. And we haven't put our 110% that we can in addressing the issues that plague us. Before me today, I know that not one person can fix the problem that we have. In this world, it takes each of us to be a part of something called change in order for us to produce the results that we want to see. And today I have before us a trailblazer who has been here before on the Faith-Based Advisory Board. She's been doing the work that she's been doing for 45 years. I'm going to introduce to some and present to others Cheryl Banks. She's a community educator on sexual violence since 1976. She has been the community educator, volunteer coordinator at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center at the University of Maryland, Prince George's Hospital since 1992. That's the year I graduated from high school, and I'm 46 years old. Sure, you've done this coming out the womb, providing training for police, medical personnel, social workers, attorneys, and many other professionals, as well as hundreds of presentations to elementary, middle, and high school students and community members. She also coordinates the Volunteer Victim Advocate Program at the center. In addition, Ms. Banks is an instructor for the NOVA, the National Organization for Victim Assistance, Academy, and an advisor for NOVA's National Advocacy Leadership Center. And as I said, she's been doing this work for 45 years this year, and she's been at the hospital for 29 years. Welcome back, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It really is my privilege and my pleasure.
We are having a conversation today about our babies. And me being a mom and me being a grandmother, when you talk about hurting the babies, you wake up the warrior in me.
Mhm.
And it is a conversation that it has affected us all. Some of us have addressed it. Others of us, we've talked about this before we hit the live button. The truth of what we see would be so traumatic if we addressed it that we would just sweep it under the rug. And again, in sweeping vital issues under the rug, we have produced a broken and fragmented society. Please share with us. We have a twofold conversation today. Please share with us your experience on sexual assault as it pertains to our babies here in Prince George's County.
Well, let me just say it's an honor again to speak about this particular issue here in the county. It's important that we do it, and we were speaking earlier about how important it is. So this is an opportunity to raise some issues that a lot of people don't want to hear about or talk about. And I will tell you that because I've been doing this for a long time, I'm pretty blunt about the kinds of things that I say. So I want people to, because I don't want to have anybody thinking or anything left to people's imaginations. So what I can say is that in Prince George's County, just like in probably every other county in the country, the issue of sexual abuse of children is huge. Lots of times children are told that they should report something or they should tell somebody, but if and when they do tell somebody, they oftentimes aren't believed, aren't heard. Sometimes they're punished for telling something because the parents that they tell or the relatives that they tell don't know what to do, and they don't feel comfortable hearing about it. It makes them uncomfortable. That puts them in a position that they don't know what to do. And so it becomes very difficult. I'm very proud of parents who bring their children in after they've made their reports to Child Protective Services or the police when they bring them into our center, because it's brave for the parent to do that sometimes in given circumstances. But we have to protect our children. We have to protect our babies. And the message that we need to get out there to children is you must tell and keep telling a trusted adult until the abuse stops. It's not enough to just say, to tell our kids, you need to tell somebody. It's not enough. They need to keep telling until somebody takes action.
That's very good. When I was going over the statistics of abuse for children, I noticed that the highest rate of abuse were those children under the age of 1. And this is where it takes a village. Like, you have to be accountable. There was a day when you lived in a neighborhood and everyone on your street, we
Right,
knew each other.
right.
And if you acted up, or if you acted up, they'd be like, I'll tell your parent. And you got yourself together because you did not want your parent or your grandmother to hear from a neighbor that you acted in an inappropriate way. Or if they saw something in the neighborhood, they would just jump in and be a part of the problem in order to create a solution. Now you can live on the same street with a person for 20 years and do not know who your neighbors are.
Mhm.
So it's extremely important that we get out and we are in our neighborhoods, that we're active, that we're paying attention, and that we're looking, and we're a part of each other's lives. Because if you're isolated in your home, you won't know if there's a child being abused next door to you every single night. We have to be aware of our surroundings.
We do.
um with your experience at the hospital, would you say that age of under 1 or 4 and under is the most vulnerable age, or not, for Prince George's County statistics?
I think it's the most vulnerable age, but that is not the age group that we see providing services for with young children, honestly. And part of the reason for that is that older children have the ability to tell.
Mhm.
You know, the younger children who are abused are more vulnerable because they're pre-verbal in the age group you're talking about. But I don't think those cases get picked up as much as the older children who have the ability to talk to somebody. And school is a great place for children to disclose something that's happening at home, whether it's physical abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse. If it's at home, the schools usually pick those things up. And a lot of the calls that go to Child Protective Services are from school members, which is why many of us in this field have been so worried for the children who are home during this pandemic, because those kids don't get a chance to see children, to see adults without somebody in the background. And so I think a lot of us are concerned about what's going to happen as the pandemic lifts and kids get more of an opportunity to tell. So I think what we see are verbal children, but I think a lot of that is because they've disclosed and the little ones aren't able to.
That's very good. And one of the things that I've learned, and I too was a young mother, and thank God for the grace of God that protected me through my missteps of mothering. One of the things as leaders, I would charge our leaders is to begin having a conversation with parents, to tell them what it is they should say to their own children. Should there be an abuse of a family member, let's have the difficult conversations. Sit down and tell your child. I do it out of love, but some people do not have the knowledge or the wherewithal to know to sit down and tell your child, if somebody touches you inappropriately, tell me. Or as leaders, if we have access, you said that many of the kids, they report their abuse through school. As teachers, as community activists, when you are in the presence of a child, be sure to tell them. If someone is touching you inappropriately, if someone is hurting you, tell an adult that you trust. We have to have these conversations often. And if you are in a grocery store, if you're in a community center, if you're in at an event, make sure that people know that you have to have these conversations. We can provide a script, we can provide a parenting class, but those who are listening, if you don't open your mouth, we may miss an opportunity to save a life. Cheryl, share with us some signs of what abuse may look like. Many of us look for physical signs of abuse, and that's not always seen. Most abuse could be hidden, but share with us in your experience some of the most common signs that a child could possibly be abused.
For child sexual abuse, it might be a young child who has been toilet trained for years and begins wetting the bed or defecating. After they've been out of diapers for a while. For some, that it may be, and may I say, may be a sign. The rest of the things I'm going to say are also things that may be signs. It doesn't mean it's definitely been a child who's been sexually abused, because there are sometimes other reasons for these behaviors. But if you see a child, a young child, or a child who's in school who has a fear or a reluctance to go to a particular adult or older kid, we want to know why. What's the concern about? And maybe if they have a concern, they can explain something that, but we have to ask those questions rather than pushing our children off to whomever we think they should be getting along with. So behavioral issues, if children start wanting to stay at home, they're usually an outgoing child and now they want to stay home. They just want to be on their devices all day. They don't want to go anywhere, do anything. So it's behavioral changes that you might see in children. Eating, they used to eat a lot and now they don't want to eat anything. So something is wrong. We just ask parents to consider the possibility that sexual abuse is part of that. It may or may not be, but if we don't ask the question, we're not going to get the answer. So those are some of those kinds of things. And I think we can have these conversations with children. We need to have them. And as you mentioned, we need to have them often. One time just isn't enough.
Mhm.
And the message can be very general. It can be, if you feel uncomfortable, if anyone makes you feel uncomfortable, come and tell me. And
Mhm.
then you can talk it through, and you as the parent or the caring adult can weigh the severity of that situation. But children have to believe that they have somebody who will protect them. And if the parent or the trusted adult doesn't protect them, then they're really on their own and they really don't know what to do. Those are some of the signs. As kids get older, you might see it in their artwork. You might see it in things that they in their journal that they write or the stories that they write. And one way to help with that is to get children to do their own drawing and to get their own stories. They can tell you stories. You can tell them stories about how you want them to come to you. And you can play games and things like that to get dialogue going so that children know that this is okay, that I can talk to my mom and dad about what's going on and I won't be punished. I'll say one more thing really quickly, and that is that in my experience, oftentimes children are more afraid to tell their parents because of the parents' reaction
Mhm.
than they are about any part of the abuse. And so sometimes a parent's reaction to the child's abuse affects that child more strongly than the abuse itself. I hope I said that right. But
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that people understand that the parent's reaction, blaming the child, shaming the child, telling the child to be quiet, punishing them, that reaction can have a stronger effect on the child than the initial touching by whomever was doing so, let's say.
Yes, and that's some things that we have to be aware of because you said it. That is extremely traumatic that when you have the courage to finally tell your truth and then your truth is dismissed,
Mhm.
that has a psychological toll on a child for years to come. The thing that I love about Prince George's County is the abundance amount of resources that we have as a county to help to be a solution to the problem. And oftentimes the residents of Prince George's County do not know the free resources that are out here to from prevention, which is what I am an advocate for. 365 days a year, 7 days a week. You have to you have to articulate ways of prevention in every area because what you prevent we don't later have to cure. So
Right.
prevention, Prince George's County is very big on prevention. I
Mhm.
told Cheryl prior to this moment, I was commending her on the work that she does and telling her, asking her all these look, I probably interviewed her before this, like, how do you find, you've been doing this for 45 years, where do you find the psychological balance to remain grounded after all of the truth that you've been exposed to? And one of the things that we talked about was the tribe and the wealth of resources that have been on the battlefield with Cheryl. Prince George's County has offered so much information. Cheryl, please share with us some preventive resources that are out here that you've been a part of, that you find have been extremely effective to assist any leader or any community advocate that's listening today.
Well, there are lots of resources. In terms of agencies, people often think of Child Protective Services as the reporting agency and the reactive agency, but they actually do have a component of community education. And they have trainers who will present to groups and so on, just like I do for various groups. And they'll talk about child abuse and neglect, and specifically sexual abuse. So that's an agency to call upon, not just for reporting abuse or neglect, but also as a resource sometimes for education. Um, there are one of the things, the tools that we use is a coloring book. Which is a wonderful technique to sit down with kids, and you can get those online. We actually have them here, but you can get them online. We buy them from a company, a distributor. And basically, the thrust of it is it tells children in a little no nonsense, non threatening way what they need to do. If somebody tries to touch them in their private parts for no good reason, they say no, get away, and tell someone.
Mhm.
And that's what the, different kinds of touches there. It's basically now called safe and unsafe touches.
Mhm.
We don't talk about good and bad touch anymore, because sometimes what we would call bad touches feel good to children. And so it's a very confusing message, but we do talk about safe and unsafe touches. There are various groups in the county. The Family Justice Center is a part of what the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center is part of in Upper Marlboro. And we have various agencies that come to the Family Justice Center to help. Social Services is there, some of the other agencies that are there to help children navigate these issues. And we mustn't forget the teens. We
Mhm.
also have teenagers, the older kids, the 12, 13, 14, up to 18. That whole group is another group that also is victim sometimes and falls prey not only to sexual assaults by people in the community, but also people in the family.
Yes.
And there's a trainer at the Family Justice Center who does a lot of work with teens and preteens. The Family Department of Family Services does as well. They're doing workshops all the time in terms of prevention for physical abuse and sexual abuse, as well as human trafficking. And they target young people, they target teens, and they also do a lot of work with boys and men. So there are various agencies throughout the county, to name a few.
That's very good because when it comes to the life of our children, we're all frontline workers. Can you give us, after I ask you to give some contact information, do you have the telephone numbers to these agencies on hand, Cheryl?
Of the Family Justice Center and those, yeah, I do.
Okay, can we just put that in the chat? So can you tell us what those numbers are for those of you who want to reach out, because education is key. Education makes a difference. And the more we communicate with our community, our target audience, preventive measures as it pertains to sexual abuse and child abuse, the difference that we make in our communities, again, that we live, work, and worship, we're stronger together. And we have to work to end the cycle of a fragmented society. And Cheryl said something that was so great. She said, I no longer talk about eradicating um abuse. She said, I talk about ending the tolerance of sexual and child abuse, which I thought was so well stated. And how do you begin to end the tolerance of it? You start with education. And the numbers that you can call for the resources that she just talked about. I listen, for me, I will start with the Family Justice Center, because the Family Justice Center is a hub for so many resources. So the contact number for the Family Justice Center is 301-780-8008. Again, for the Family Justice Center, they can be reached via phone at 301-780-8008. And the University of Maryland Hospital Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center, their number is 301-618-3154. If you are a child or a teenager that is listening today and you have been a victim of someone touching you in an unsafe manner, call one of these two numbers. There is help here for you. If you cannot remember those numbers, dial 311. 911. There is help in Prince George's County. There's a line of warriors and frontline soldiers that will fight to save your life. We are here so that you can live a productive and thriving life. Cheryl, you've been passionate about this work for so long, and you have to be in order to stay in it. Um, Tell us, what is the thing that wakes you up in the morning, the thing that keeps you connected to, um we talked about this prior to us going live. What you've seen would have caused post-traumatic stress in the strongest of people. How are you able to stay in a field of this nature for so long and be so productive?
I think I made a decision many years ago that, and it follows with this thinking. When someone's been sexually harmed, by the time I meet them, it has already happened to them. So then I had the question, well, is the question, do I want to know about it or not know about it because it's too awful? Or is the question, can I help this person? And what I decided long ago is how I felt about it wasn't important. That what I needed to do was take this person from where they are when I meet them in any way that I can to help them in the direction they want to go. And that idea of just pushing forward to help other people, I think is what's kept me there. I mean, I could leave and it wouldn't change anything that happened to them, but I felt like as long as I was of value to them and I could help them in whatever small way that I can, I would do that. And the other piece, as I mentioned to you, is that I've been doing education on sexual violence since 1976. My audiences that I speak to, I think, are my therapy, and some of them would tell you that, especially the high school classes. I've done now thousands of high school classes over the years, and the high school kids are so interested in learning and knowing the truth. And as I said, I'm an unvarnished truth teller. I don't hold back. I just tell them what I see, and let them understand how awful this is, and that they can do something about it. And I think the encouragement from the trainings that I've done, even in the professional trainings that I've done, there's been a lot of encouragement because people have been willing to learn about things that no one's talked about before. Remember when I started way back in the 70s, this is a whole, we have a I could tell you stories that would make your hair curl about
Mm,
what's going on way back in the days in terms of people not being believed, in terms of what was happening to women in those days, and in children too, about cases not being prosecuted, all of those things. And there's been such an awareness that has grown in all these years. But for me, it was nobody was doing it and somebody had to. And I can't do everything, but I can certainly do something. And I've learned through the training of volunteers that the volunteers that have come to the hospital have learned, and they take that message and the experience they've had here into their lives. And so it spreads just like that. And people have gone on to do amazingly productive things after having had a volunteer experience here. So the message has been transmitted from our hospital out into the community over, as I say, almost 30 years. I think as we continue to talk about this issue and let people know that it is not okay, it is just not okay for someone to touch someone or do anything to them sexually that they don't want to have done. And as long as we have those conversations and we're all on the same page, that's going to diminish. It may not completely stop ever, but it will certainly diminish. And we can make it socially unacceptable for sexual violence. We can make that socially unacceptable. And I
absolutely.
think that's what keeps me going.
Yes, when you look at the statistics that came out in 2020, and you know that these are just the numbers of those that reported, when you
Mhm.
see that 4.4 million children were affected by some form of abuse, it should wake up something on the inside of you and say, no matter what my purpose is in life, I have to give a certain percent of who I am to educate, to prevent, and to counsel those, because
Mhm.
some of the greatest heroes that walk this earth are survivors of abuse,
Mhm.
whether they were abused early in life or later in life. To me, they are the real modern day heroes, that
Mhm.
you survived what was designed to not only destroy you, but literally take the breath out of your body. And when you survive being a survivor, and then you come back for events like what's coming up on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Take Back the Night, and you become a voice of a survivor. So that note that I heard this saying when someone recently said, "Why are you so passionate about this issue?" And a person's response was, "I am a survivor, so you don't have to be." So
Mhm,
when you talk to people about what it is that you've been through and you survive and become living proof that I outlived what was done to me, you create us. I believe that is contagious. And we
mhm,
continue, it's like a brush fire. We
mhm.
continue, you light something in us and we continue to have the conversation. You work with survivors. You've put on a great event that we'll talk about in just a moment. But what advice would you give to a survivor that's listening that may be an adult that was abused as a child?
First of all, it's important to understand the impact of that abuse on you and your life today. How is that impacting you? Is it still troubling you? Do you still have responses? Do you still have nightmares? Do you still have inability to form relationships? However, that's impacting your life. That's the first thing, because if it is still impacting your life, it's really useful to get some counseling.
Mhm.
Counseling is very, very, very helpful for people, even if it's scary. Sometimes people have to, I always used to tell my kids, it's okay to be scared about doing something, but don't let that fear keep you from doing what you know you need to do. Fear is a natural, normal reaction. There's nothing wrong with it. It's self-preservation sometimes. But there are times that you know that even if you're afraid, you have to push yourself to do this. And getting with the right counselor, someone who specializes in trauma, can be life-changing, life-saving. I've seen that here in this center, where someone has come in so broken, and for so many years being so broken, and committed to therapy, just
Mhm.
committed to therapy, and left therapy in a whole different place. They feel better, they feel happier. So that the therapy is the one piece. And the other piece is you have got to get comfortable with yourself and who you are. And
Mhm.
oftentimes that happens through therapy. So I guess I would say that's the first thing. And then feel comfortable sharing with someone that you trust,
Mhm.
if you feel like that can happen. Because I'll tell you again, back to my presentations, I often would have people come up to me afterwards and say that they were sexually abused as a child, and until that moment they had never told anybody. I was the first person they told, and the reason they told me is because I made them feel comfortable sharing their truth. And I could almost visibly see those burdens being lifted from their shoulders. You could almost see them stand up a little taller
Yeah.
because they shifted that secret. The secret was out. And if you're carrying that secret, I tell people, secret can kill you. It
Yes,
can
Lord.
bring in, yeah, you can bring in disease in your life. It can bring all kinds of different things. We don't have time for all of that. But my point is, it can. And so when you share that burden, it's not so heavy.
That's good. If you all want Cheryl to come minister in your pulpit on a Sunday, let me know. I'll go ahead and I'll handle all of her speaking engagements because that is the absolute truth. Secrets can kill. That is so good. And therapy is necessary to
Mhm.
process the thoughts that in your mind. Sometimes we're not strong enough to process our thoughts. My husband has this saying, and he says this often. He said, "You better stop going up in your mind by yourself." And because we're on the faith based platform, there are some things you said that sometimes fear is self preservation. Sometimes you do bury experiences and things that happen to you. God does allow that to happen. And for some incidences, it comes back up. And you said, I forgot all about this. Why am I thinking about this now? Why now in life am I remembering this traumatic experience? And I've said this based on being living proof that oftentimes God will allow those experiences to come back to your remembrance because it's time for healing. And now you're strong enough to deal with it. At the time when life happened, you weren't strong enough to deal with it. But now that you are, he has resources available with you. And for Prince George's County, it either starts at your local church or you can reach out to the Family Justice Center. Let's abolish shame. There should
Mhm.
be no shame attached to something you didn't have anything. It wasn't your fault. It happened. Let's just take that stigma off the table. And there should be no shame attached to something that hurt you. Go get help. It has happened to the best of people.
Mhm.
And you should not live in psychological bondage. There is help here for you. And for most of the powerful resources that you find here in Prince George's County, they're available for you to you for free.
Mhm.
Again, if you cannot remember the number, which is 301-780-8008, dial 311. There is help available for you. And we don't have a lot of time. This is a topic that we can talk about today. I wanted you all to do three things: to talk about the initial signs that you see that a child may be abused, to talk about the importance of prevention, and how if you do more education and go and teach wherever you find yourself in life. You can have an audience at the 7-Eleven. You do not have to have a
Mhm.
platform to tell somebody something that could save their life. So to make sure that as residents of Prince George's County that we're equipped to be a community, because again, we're stronger together, and to make sure that you know that Prince George's County has been extremely intentional about what it is that we offer our residents to make sure that we have what we need in order to be a thriving success. Now, let's talk about, you have an event coming up. It
Okay.
is Take Back the Night. It is taking place on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And I know that you have a vast number of speakers, survivors, and their families are going to be honored. They're telling their story. And one of my emerged sisters, Yolanda Quintanilla, is going to be her voice is going to be heard on that platform. But tell us a little bit about it. Let us know how we can register, if registration is still
Okay.
open. But please share, because this is a major event taking place.
Well, it is, and thank you so much for acknowledging it. This will be our 16th annual Take Back the Night, but our first, and I hope our last one that is virtual. We're doing it virtually this year. Usually we do it on the grounds, but I think it's going to be an amazing event anyway. So we're going to do it virtually. Melissa Hopmeyer, who works for the state's attorney's office and is a prosecutor as well as an advocate for sexual assault survivors and child abuse survivors and all of those, is going to be our keynote speaker. And then we will have survivors speaking about their journey from being victims to survivors. The theme of our event is called Take Back the Night: Where There's Darkness, Be the Light. And that's what we're hoping people will take away from that. So it's going to be about an hour. If anybody's interested in signing up, if you go to Eventbrite and just put in April the 15th, you'll see that it's tomorrow and you can sign up there. And it's through signing up at Eventbrite that you will get the link to join us. So you have to sort of go through that to get that link. But you will be admitted, and we would love to have you because we have room for everybody because it's virtual. Our end goal is to get the community involved. And we'll be talking about an initiative that was started nationally that we're doing here in the hospital. And I would love to see it done in the community. And that's talking about starting by believing. Start by believing. And the purpose of that is to get people on board to pledge that I, Cheryl Banks, will say to someone who tells me that they've been raped or sexually assaulted, that I will start by believing. You sign a pledge. We'll show you about that tomorrow night. And it's also, you can contact us for more information about it. But the goal is to see how many people in Prince George's County are willing to start by believing. And if we just take that principle, that little principle all by itself, when somebody tells you something and you say back to them, I believe you, the impact of that is phenomenal. I've seen it myself. So it really helps people to heal and to be heard. And it's something we start to talk about with our children. When our children tell us something we don't want to believe or we don't want to hear, if we say to our children, I believe you and I will protect you, that's the beginning of that healing process. So we're going to talk about that and the ways that communities can get involved in this very important major issue that we're dealing with in society.
That's so good. I, Nakia Wright, will start by believing. I'm looking forward to it. I have my link. I've joined in on the Human Trafficking Task Force, and I've been a witness to the work that they are doing. And I tell you, they are true soldiers for what it is that they believe in. It's a selfless commitment, and I've seen them unwavering stand in the gap to save a life, and it has been absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to Take Back the Night. Again, that is at 6:30 on tomorrow evening. You can go to Eventbrite. You can either look up by the day, April 15th, or you can put in Take Back the Night. It'll come up. Register for this event. The purpose of these town halls are to educate you in our community so that we can fortify a community that works together. And if we work together, we can prevent, we can eradicate, we can make sure that the brokenness has been our normal. Let strength be our posture going out. Let healthy, thriving families and communities be the thing that we shout from the rooftops consistently together. And I'm looking forward to what it is that education is going to bring to our lives in this season. So again, Take Back the Night, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. If you have not done so, please make sure that you like the faith-based advisory board page. We have done town halls on every subject that you can possibly think of. So we have an archive that's incredible. Be sure to look at the videos on Facebook or go to our YouTube page. Check out some of our videos. We have some phenomenal committees. We do have this coming Monday, April the 19th at 7 o'clock p.m. The Faith Based Advisory Board will have our monthly update meeting, and we are going to discuss an extremely sensitive topic. We're going to discuss the new police reform bill. We're going to have some special guests on pertaining to that and some of the things that you've seen in the news. We're going to discuss that because as leaders, our voice needs to be heard. Please make ssure that you mark your calendar, set your alarms, and plan to join us. Again, that's Monday, April the 19th at 7 o'clock p.m. On Thursday, April the 22nd at 7 o'clock p.m., the Education Committee is going to do what they do best in distance learning and going back to school. We've had our educators come on and share with us all of the vital information we need, offer us some mental peace, offer us answers to questions that as parents, as educators, as residents that we have. It's been extremely productive in one of our extremely successful committees on the Faith-Based Advisory Board. So please make sure that you, again, mark your calendar, set your alarms. Thursday, April the 22nd at 7 o'clock p.m. And last but not least, the Dynamic Economic Development Committee, led by our co-chair, Dr. Sharon Anderson, and her group of men, Pastor Chapman and Pastor Brooks. They are extremely phenomenal. They're going to be giving you resources to how to prosper after the pandemic. Let me tell you something, the information that's going to be shared, bring your paper, bring your pen, plan to take notes, because I promise you, it'll have you going from surviving to thriving. So that is April the 27th. That will take place at noon. So listen, you can avoid all of the trying to remember all of these moments by just turning your notifications on and following us on Facebook. Cheryl, thank you for this moment. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your unwavering support of victims and survivors. Thank you for being such an integral part of Prince George's County. And I pray that God blesses you above you anything that you can ever think or imagine.
Thank you so very much. This was a wonderful opportunity. I really appreciated the dialogue.
Yes, me too. And again, thank you for joining us. Again, turn on your notifications, like our page. We look forward to talking to you very soon. And my name is, again, Nakia Wright, the chair of the Faith Based Advisory Board. Remember, we're stronger together. We look forward to seeing you on Monday. Thank you.